Imagine you are sitting in a boardroom. The quarterly numbers have just been reviewed. Your coffee is getting a little cold. And, the conversation inevitably turns to the topic of the year.
Right. Everybody's favorite buzzword.
Exactly. And someone leans forward, they steeple their fingers, and they ask what sounds like the absolutely perfect forward-thinking question. They say, what work can we eliminate with AI?
Oh, yeah. The classic cost-cutting angle.
It sounds so sharp, right? Like it sounds like pure efficiency,
Yeah.
but it's actually a trap.
It is a massive trap
Okay.
because it frames this entirely new category of technology as like a simple software upgrade.
Yeah.
Or just a way to shrink headcount.
Yeah.
And the core thesis of our deep dive today, which we're pulling from a recent piece in the Amplified Impact newsletter by Scott Wise, he's the founder of AI for Leaders, is that the mandate to eliminate work is just the wrong starting point entirely.
Right. And the better question, the one that actually separates the companies seeing real returns from the ones that are just, spinning their wheels, is what thinking can we elevate?
Exactly. Eliminate versus elevate.
So that's our mission for this deep dive. We are unpacking Scott Wise's analysis to figure out why treating AI like just another tech upgrade leads to a complete dead end.
Yeah, and we're also going to get into how this, honestly, kind of obscure psychological concept from the 1970s is quietly becoming the most important skill for modern knowledge workers.
It's wild. But let's set the stage first. Because artificial intelligence isn't a competitive differentiator anymore. Like, everybody has access to it.
Right. The playing field is totally leveled.
Yeah.
The foundational models that felt like magic a year ago are now just, default features in your email.
Yeah, it's just a button in your word processor now.
Exactly. The tech is totally democratized,
Yeah.
but the actual business outcomes, they are wildly divergent.
And you brought a really specific data point on that from a 2024 BCG global survey, right?
I did, yeah. So BCG surveyed about 1,000 senior executives across 59 countries, and the scale of capital being thrown at AI is just massive. Enterprise licenses, consultants, dedicated task forces.
Everybody's going all in.
They are. But the survey found that 74% of those companies have failed to generate any tangible, scalable value from those investments.
Wait, 74%?
Yeah.
No.
Almost 3/4 of the market is basically failing to see a real return.
That is staggering.
And the instinct for most of these companies when things stall is to just blame the tool. They think, oh, we need a better model, or we need a more expensive enterprise tier.
It reminds me of the whole smart home gym craze.
Oh, yeah.
Like, people will go out and drop $3,000 on this state-of-the-art stationary bike with the massive screen and biometric tracking, right?
Right, the best of the best.
They set it up in their living room, but then they don't change their diet. They don't actually block out time in their calendar to work out.
So it just becomes very expensive coat rack.
Exactly. 6 months later, it's holding laundry. Because they invested entirely in the infrastructure, but they completely ignored the behavioral process required to actually get a result.
That is a perfect analogy. Because BCG looked at the companies that are actually succeeding,
Yeah.
the ones getting like 1.5 times higher revenue growth than their peers.
Okay, what are they doing differently?
They follow what BCG calls the 10-20-70 rule. It's a completely different allocation model.
Break that ratio down for me. What's the 10%?
10% of their resources goes into the algorithms themselves.
Okay.
20% goes into the core tech infrastructure.
Which leaves a massive 70%.
Right. 70% goes entirely into people, processes, culture, and change management.
Wow.
Meanwhile, the companies in that 74% failure bucket, they do the exact opposite. They pour all their money into the tech and treat the humans as an afterthought.
Which really highlights that this is a cognitive bottleneck, not a technical one.
Spot on.
And if an organization needs to put 70% of its AI investment into human capability, we have to ask what that capability actually is. Because it's clearly not just, teaching people how to write better prompts.
No, it goes way deeper than that. Which brings us to that 1970s psychology concept you mentioned earlier.
Right. Metacognition.
Exactly. Coined by John Flavel. And at its most basic level, metacognition just means thinking about your thinking.
Right. It's the ability to kind of observe and evaluate your own brain processes while you're doing a task.
Yeah. And I know it sounds a little academic. You might be wondering why a 50-year-old theory matters when we're dealing with, trillion parameter neural networks today.
Well, yeah. How does that solve a 2020s generative AI problem?
Because we've essentially handed every single knowledge worker a supercomputer. But operating it requires a very specific, very human filter.
There was that Microsoft research paper from the CHI 2024 conference that looked at exactly this, right?
Yes, they studied how professionals actually interact with generative AI during really complex tasks. And they found that the hardest parts, like figuring out how to frame the problem or critically evaluating the output and iterating toward a good result, those aren't tech skills.
They're metacognitive demands.
Exactly. You have to know the limits of your own knowledge. You have to realize when an approach is just totally failing so you can pause and pivot.
Because the AI produces information so incredibly fast.
Right. And if you lack the discipline to evaluate it, you either get completely overwhelmed or worse, you just accept flawed data as absolute fact.
And there's a really crazy paradox here that shows just how dangerous that is. I was looking at this peer-reviewed study out of Aalto University and LMU Munich.
At the confidence gap study.
Yeah. So they had professionals use AI for cognitively demanding work. And on the surface, the AI made them faster. But it created this massive confidence gap.
Because they felt like they were doing better than they actually were.
Exactly. The data showed that higher AI literacy actually correlated with lower metacognitive accuracy.
Wait, so the more they knew about AI, the worse they were at evaluating their work.
Yes. The people who knew the most about the tools were the most likely to vastly overestimate the quality of their AI-assisted work.
That is fascinating. And it happens because of this psychological glitch called the fluency heuristic.
The fluency heuristic, explain that.
Basically, when information is presented in a really polished way, like perfect grammar, confident tone, nice little bullet points, your brain unconsciously assumes it's factually accurate.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. So as users get better at prompting the AI to make these slick professional outputs, their critical defenses just drop. They see a smooth process and a pretty document, and they assume the underlying logic is bulletproof.
They're essentially being seduced by the formatting.
Exactly. The brain wants to save energy.
Right. So if it sees a well-structured paragraph, it just completely skips the rigorous fact-checking phase. Scott Wise calls this behavior linear mode.
Linear mode, yeah. Which is how almost everyone uses AI right now.
Ask a question, get an answer, copy it, move on.
Right. And for low-stakes stuff, like summarizing a boring meeting transcript, linear mode is totally fine. But when you use it for complex, strategic work, that's when things break down.
It saves time today, but it degrades your actual capability tomorrow.
Yeah.
It's like GPS blindness.
Oh, that's a good way to put it.
Right. Like before smartphones, if you moved to a new city, you had to build a mental map. You learned the roads, the landmarks, the shortcuts. You actually engaged with the environment.
Yeah, you had to think about it.
Now, you outsource all of that to the screen on your dashboard. So if your phone battery dies, you're literally paralyzed. You couldn't navigate your own neighborhood because that navigational muscle has just completely atrophied.
And researchers at the MIT Media Lab actually formalized this idea in a recent preprint. They call it cognitive debt.
Cognitive debt. That sounds ominous.
It kind of is. They monitored people using AI for complex writing tasks. And when professionals used it passively, like just letting the tool write the whole thing while they watched, they showed markedly weaker neural engagement.
The brain just wasn't firing.
Right. It wasn't grappling with the problem.
And the outcome of that MIT study was wild. Didn't they find that 83% of the users couldn't recall a single sentence from the essay they'd just supposedly written?
83%. Not one sentence.
Wow.
Because there's no cognitive friction. When you write something yourself, you struggle to find the right word, you delete bad sentences, you argue with yourself. That friction forces your neural pathways to encode the information.
But if you just read an AI output, you completely bypass the friction.
You're just consuming information. You're not generating knowledge.
So what's the fix? How do we stop accumulating this cognitive debt?
The antidote is active engagement. You have to stop treating the AI like an oracle handing down final answers and start treating it as a thinking partner.
Okay, so pushing back on it.
Right. You frame the problem, evaluate the response, find the gaps in its logic, and make it try again. This is the difference between automation and amplification.
Automation being where you treat the human as a bottleneck to just bypass. Yeah.
Exactly. Just make it faster. Whereas amplification treats human judgment as an asset that the technology can multiply.
So if you have weak thinking skills, AI just helps you produce bad work much faster.
Sadly, yes.
But if you have strong critical thinking, it amplifies that exponentially.
Which is great on an individual level. But scaling that across a whole company, that is incredibly hard.
Right, because how do you tell 10,000 people to just think harder?
You can't. That's why metacognition has to become a leadership responsibility. According to MIT, Sloan, and Deloitte, companies where leaders visibly model AI adoption are 3 times more likely to actually get a measurable ROI.
3 times more likely.
Yeah.
But there is a glaring gap there, right? I saw data showing that 94% of CEOs say AI is their top strategic priority,
Right.
but only 6% of employees actually feel confident using it.
94 to 6. That is a massive disconnect.
Oh.
And it's because it's not a training problem, it's a modeling problem.
Explain that.
Employees are scared. They're worried that if the AI hallucinates a fake number in a client report, they're going to get fired. But they're also worried that if they don't use AI, they'll be replaced by someone who does.
It's a lose-lose in their minds.
Exactly. They need psychological safety. If a manager is just using AI to make quick, superficial summaries and calling it a day, the whole team is going to copy that exact linear behavior.
The culture just mirrors the boss.
Always.
Okay, so if I'm managing a team and we're stuck in that 94-6% gap, what do we practically do tomorrow morning?
Well, Scott Wise lays out 5 disciplines in his newsletter to build this capability. The first one is make thinking visible.
See, making thinking visible, if I ask my team to narrate every single step of how they use AI, that just sounds like a bureaucratic nightmare. Doesn't that kill the efficiency we're trying to gain?
It's not about making a diary of every single prompt you typed. It's about shifting the focus off the final deliverable. So when an employee brings you an AI-generated strategy doc, you don't just say, looks good. You ask, what was the AI's first draft, and why did you change it?
Oh, I see. You want them to narrate the gap between the machine's baseline and their human judgment.
Yes. You make the critical thinking transparent so the whole team learns from it.
Which flows right into the second discipline, normalize iteration.
Right. We have to break the habit of accepting the very first output.
Because the first output from a language model is just a statistical average of the internet. It's going to be aggressively mediocre.
Aggressively mediocre. It's a rough lump of clay, not a finished sculpture.
Which means we have to move to the third discipline, which I love.
Yeah.
Shift from prompting to dialogue.
This one is huge.
Because treating generative AI like a search engine is just dead. You know, you type a query, hit enter, get an answer.
Right, it's not Google.
Exactly. A way better metaphor is to treat the AI like a really eager, highly read 22-year-old intern.
Oh, the intern analogy. I love this.
Right. Like, the intern has memorized every textbook in the world. They desperately want your approval, and they will confidently lie straight to your face just to give you the answer they think you want.
They absolutely will.
You cannot just hand that intern a task and walk away. You have to debate them. You have to push back, point out contradictions, and demand they defend their logic.
And that dialogue is what forces your own metacognitive flexibility. You're adapting as you go.
But eventually, you need a finished product, which brings up the fourth discipline, build a valuation discipline.
Yes. Every piece of AI work needs a strict human filter before it goes out the door. And Wise uses this great checklist called the 3 A's: accuracy, alignment, and authenticity.
Okay, let's run a quick scenario through the 3 A's. Let's say you tell the AI to write a complex apology email to a massive client because your servers crashed.
Okay, high stakes.
Very. First A is accuracy. Is it verifiable? The AI says the servers went down at 2 a.m. That's true, so it passes accuracy.
Okay. Then the second A is alignment. Does this actually fit your strategic context? The AI doesn't know your company politics or your budget unless you tell it.
Right.
So maybe it apologizes by offering the client a 50% discount on their next renewal.
Which is a standard customer service move.
Totally logical. But if you don't have the financial authority to offer a 50% discount, the email completely fails the alignment test.
And the final A is authenticity. Does it sound like you? If the AI writes this apology using super flowery language like a 19th century diplomat.
We humbly beseech thee.
Exactly. It fails the authenticity test.
Yeah.
The client will immediately know a robot wrote it and the trust is gone. Human accountability has to be the final filter.
Which perfectly sets up the fifth and final discipline: close the loop.
Closing the loop.
The biggest mistake companies make is treating every AI chat as an isolated, one-off event. When a project is done, you have to harvest the insights.
Like asking, what did the AI misunderstand this time?
Right. Or what specific phrasing finally got the tone you wanted. You take those lessons and put them into a shared team prompt or a custom instruction.
Because if you don't close the loop, your team is just starting from scratch with a blank text box every single morning.
Exactly. You want the digital workspace to get smarter with every cycle.
So when a team makes thinking visible, normalizes iteration,
Hmm.
engages in dialogue, uses the three A's, and closes the loop they are building that 70%.
They are. They're building the human capability that actually extracts value.
Pulling all this together, the BCG data, the MIT study, Scott Wise's framework, it paints a really clear picture of where knowledge work is going. We are entering an era of completely abundant intelligence.
Information is just no longer scarce.
Right. Any entry-level person can generate a massive market analysis in 10 seconds. The scarce resource now is human judgment. It's the ability to interpret, challenge, and apply that information.
And as the models get faster and smarter, the real differentiator for you and your company is going to be the stuff machines can't do. Navigating ethical gray areas, synthesizing messy human context, knowing when the machine is just dead wrong.
It's entirely about the cognitive framework you apply to the tool. And for you listening, if you want to dive deeper into these concepts and figure out how to build this capability with your own teams, I really recommend checking out more of Scott Wise's work. You can find his newsletter and a ton of resources on this at scottwise.ai.
Definitely check that out. But, there is one final, somewhat provocative thought I'd leave you with as you think about your own organization's future.
Oh, what's that?
Well, if we successfully use AI to automate all that entry-level analytical work, the routine data gathering, the basic drafting, the grunt work, how do we actually train the next generation of senior leaders? Because if junior employees never have to struggle through that cognitive friction early in their careers, do they ever develop the deep, intuitive judgment required to evaluate AI outputs at a high strategic level later on? We might be solving an efficiency problem today only to create a massive capability deficit for tomorrow.